Here is a photo. A closer look reveals peeling walls and crumbling roof tiles. It's a photo of Matsumoto Castle taken in the Meiji period. How did it end up looking like this? You may not have been aware of this, but Matsumoto Castle was actually close to disappearing in the Meiji period. The castle has become a symbol of the city of Matsumoto. It's been designated as a national treasure in recognition of its historical and cultural value as a castle that has remained to this day. It is visited by people from all over Japan and the world, and it bustles as a place of rest and recreation among tourists and local residents. The castle is always a part of local festivals, including the Castle Festival and Soba Festival, and it is truly a symbol of the city.
松本って言ったら城松本城だなって思って綺麗ですよね。はい。
岡本かなので誇りに思ってます。
松本市民として、国宝を世界遺産に認したいと思うし、たくさんの観光客の人が来てくれたらいいなと思います。
But if the castle had disappeared, these events would not have existed and tourists would not have visited. And above all, Matsumoto citizens would not have been able to take pride in living in a city with a castle. When this was close to becoming reality in the early Meiji period, two people stood up to take on the challenges of rescuing the castle. The castle rises out of the ground in Matsumoto Daira. The extant five-structure, six-story tenshu or castle tower which exists to this day is over 400 years old. It is said to have begun with the building of the Fukashi Castle, which was one of the castles built by Shimadachi of the Ogasawara clan who ruled the entire area around Matsumoto in the Muromachi period. The current tenshu was built by Ichikawa Kazumasa and his son Yasunaga, who served Toyotomi Hideyoshi. In 1725, the castle fell under the jurisdiction of the Tokugawa shogunate after the Matsumoto Taihen incident, and there were even difficult times when the castle came to be owned by the renowned Sanada. However, it was preserved until the Edo period under the hands of 23 lords from 6 families. Then Japan entered a time of great change in the Meiji period. Matsumoto too changed from the Matsumoto domain to Chikuma Prefecture, and Western-style buildings began to spring up. On the other hand, people began demolishing temples and castles throughout Japan. Matsumoto Castle too was slated for demolition, and it was put up for auction. That's when a person by the name of Ryozo Ichikawa went into action. At the time, he was the Fukukocho of Shimoyokotamachi, a town to the east of Matsumoto Castle.
It's the dawning of a new age. But that doesn't justify the neglecting of old things. What's more, Matsumoto Castle is the symbol of Matsumoto.
But by this time, Matsumoto Castle had already been sold for 235 ryo, which at today's price is the equivalent of around 4 million yen, and it was awaiting demolition.
Matsumoto Castle is extremely valuable, both historically and culturally. It has to be preserved for future generations at all cost.
Ryozo resolved to buy back the castle. But how would he be able to do that? Ryozo came up with an idea. It was the Vienna International Exposition. Huge expositions were being held throughout the world at the time, and Japan too began imitating them by holding expositions all over the country. Ryozo had always dreamed of holding an exposition in Matsumoto too, to allow people to come into contact with different cultures.
I know. Let's hold an exposition in the Tenshu of Matsumoto Castle. And the profits can be used to buy back the castle.
At the time, Ryozo was also involved in the issuing of Shimpi Shimbun, Nagano Prefecture's first daily newspaper. He notified readers of the importance of preserving Matsumoto Castle. Then, in 1873 of the Meiji period, he realized his dream of holding the first exposition in the Tenshu of Matsumoto Castle. It was a huge success, attracting as many as 5,000 people per day, and the event was extended for 10 days, after which it was held a total of 5 times. Ryozo also invested his personal fortune and collected donations from people to buy back the castle and saved it from demolition. But what was it that inspired him to hold an exposition at the castle?
彼は啓蒙家というふうに言われてまして、いろいろ新しいことに挑戦をするという、そういう精神がたくさん持っていたようですね。で、したがってその博覧会もですね、博覧会有料にして、どうにか古いものを残すと。やっぱり古いものの長所を取って短所を捨てるということが非常に大事ではないかというふうに考えていたようです。
Matsumoto Castle exists today thanks to his power of foresight and enthusiasm. He was also the pioneer of events held at the castle. Ryozo was amazing. Ryozo's actions saved Matsumoto Castle from demolition. But a new problem arose. The castle had become dilapidated due to years of exposure to rain and snow. The walls were peeling off, the roof tiles were crumbling, and the castle had become tilted. Unari Kobayashi was a man who felt distressed at this sight. At the time, he was the principal of Matsumoto Junior High School, which at the time stood in the Ninomaru or second enclosure of the castle.
Matsumoto Castle represents the history of Matsumoto itself. It's so shameful that our castle should be so dilapidated. It's going to collapse if it's left alone.
It was then that the Nagano prefectural government decided to turn the Honmaru or main enclosure of Matsumoto Castle into the Matsumoto Junior High School playground. This prompted Unari to consider restoring the Tenshu of the castle. Then in 1901, Unari established the Matsumoto Tenshukaku Restoration Association. He collected donations from all over the country to restore the castle. One of the objectives of this association was
to ensure the eternal preservation of Matsumoto Castle.
It testified to his passion. Then Matsumoto Castle was finally restored after 11 years from 1903 to 1913. Unari passed away the following year, almost as if he had been holding on to life just to oversee its completion. He was 60 years old. It had been a major project that he invested almost half of his working life into, of the 23 years that he had spent as the principal of Matsumoto Junior High School. His funeral was held at Matsumoto Castle, and it was said to have been attended by around 3,000 people.
小林成は松本中学の校長先生だったものですから、毎日天守閣を見ていたという中で、やはりこのままじゃいかんと。広くやっぱり民間から寄付を集めまして、明治の大修理と言われるその修理工事を行ってですね、傷んでいた天守を修復をしたということがありました。そのおかげで天守閣がですね、 今日まできちんとした形で流れてきたということが言えるんではないかと思います。
Matsumoto Castle, restored by Unari Kobayashi, underwent another major restoration in the Showa period for 5 years starting in 1950, in which the Tenshu was dismantled and reconstructed into its current form. Today, there are plaques near the Kuromon or Black Gate of Matsumoto Castle dedicated to the achievements of these two men. It was thanks to the efforts of Ryozo Ichikawa and Unari Kobayashi, as well as the cooperation of the local residents, that Matsumoto Castle and indeed the scenery of today's Matsumoto exists.
市民の力によってやはり明治の初めの博覧会、それから明治30年代から大正にかけての大修理で、そういうものが市民の寄付と心意気によってなされたというふうに考えてもいいと思います。それがやっぱりその連綿と伝わって今でもやはり松本城を市民のシンボルだということになったのではないかなと考えられます。
Activities initiated by Ryozo Ichikawa and Unari Kobayashi and the spirit of the citizens of Matsumoto who supported them live on to this day. So, let's take a look at the variety of activities carried out by the citizens to support Matsumoto Castle. On this day, the floors of the castle were being polished by elementary school children. The children are volunteers who gathered in response to an ad put out by the city. This is an important part of the work to preserve the castle.
松本城の床をきれいにしたいなと思ってまた参加しました。
子供に松本で育って生まれたところなので、こう建物というか重要文化財なので大切にしていってほしい。松本に愛着を持ってもらいたいと思って参加しました。
The floors are kept spotless thanks to the efforts of elementary school children. Other than that, here are junior high school students sweeping up the fallen leaves. The castle is a part of everyday life in Matsumoto. It seems that the children who grew up seeing the castle are beginning to develop a fondness for it.
保育園の頃からよく見てて、よく落ち葉とか落ちてたんで綺麗にしたいなって気持ちはあったので、綺麗にできてよかったです。
お堀の中を掃除している方と、協力してすごく綺麗にできたし、観光客の皆さんにもありがとうとか言ってもらえてすごく嬉しかったです。
Of course, adults too play an important role in maintaining the castle. Ikaria Lacquerware Shop has been carrying out re-lacquering work at the castle for generations. Lacquer repels water and protects wood, but it is also not very resistant to ultraviolet radiation and rain, so the walls have to be re-lacquered every year, which takes about a month. We asked Mr. Ikaria about his work.
自分たちのやってる仕事っていうのは目立たない仕事なんですけれども、お城が主役ですので、それをしっかりさせていくっていうことですよね。できた当時の、ものをそのまま続けていく、そういう仕事をやるっていうのは国宝でもあるし、誇りに思ってますけどね。
It was said to be during the major restoration work in the Showa period that they discovered the use of lacquer at the castle. Valuable materials like these on Matsumoto Castle are carefully stored and used by research specialists at Matsumoto Castle Management Office.
なんだけども泣いてって河原で仕切ったところを見ながら、本丸御殿の畳の上を通ってってこの
They spare no effort in their daily research, and their knowledge is passed on to children who carry the future on their shoulders. It allows them to rediscover the castle that they had grown so familiar with.
これから皆さんが通るところはその家の中、昔は畳が敷いてあった全部ね。だから畳の中みんな入ってくる。いい？
The researcher teaches them all kinds of things inside the castle too. What's the meaning behind the shapes of the windows? Why are the stairs so steep? You can find out at Matsumoto Castle.
ちょっとよくわからなかったこともあったけど、もうすごく分かってきた。今までお城のことはあんまり知らなかったけどよく分かった。
More overseas tourists have been visiting the castle in recent years. There are volunteer guides who interpret for the tourists. Castles symbolize Japanese culture in the eyes of foreigners. The guides answer their questions carefully. They too are people who help to prop up Matsumoto Castle.
こうやって直にね、たくさんお城に来ていただいて、でお城が松本城が知っていただければ、それにその英語ガイドが役に立てば非常に嬉しいと思います。
So how do the foreigners feel about Matsumoto Castle?
Very, very nice and very interesting. Like the different sides of the building were built at different moments, so you can see the differences in the. And it's all in wood and all is original, so it's very beautiful and very nice.
The Matsumoto Ancient Castle Association, established in 1966, has been engaging in a variety of citizen-based activities to support the castle over half a century. On this day, a Mochitsuki event was held during the regular festival for Nijuroku Yashin, the guardian deity of Matsumoto Castle. The members of the association love the castle, and they gather in the hope of helping in any way they can. They are like the unsung heroes of the castle. The mochi rice cake was given away to tourists and citizens who came to the castle. Mr. Tanaka, chairman of the Ancient Castle Association, says,
本当に市川良妻以降連綿としてこの城下町の市民の思いというものが城にこもってたと思うんですよね。これからもしっかり古樹会というものを育ててお城のためにまた地元のこういった文化財保護のためにもですねみんなで一生懸命やっていきたいとこのように思っております。
On this day, people were carrying out Fuyugakoi. Trees are covered with straw to prepare for the harsh winter in Matsumoto. This too is carried out by the association every year. Then there is Shimenawa Zukuri. The Shimenawa rope that adorns the castle in early spring is also made by the association. Great work, everyone! As you can see, Matsumoto Castle is propped up by the efforts of many citizens. Work is